I was born into a family where expectations were never equal. For years I accepted that I was the responsible one, while my brother Jason was the fun one. This unspoken rule defined our lives until last Sunday when everything changed. After working 60 hours that week helping with our family business on top of my full-time job, I walked into our parents' living room exhausted. Dad immediately criticized me for not completing additional tasks. Minutes later, Jason strolled in tan from a golf weekend our parents had paid for, and Dad smiled. When I finally questioned this treatment, Dad looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You have work while your brother enjoys." It is that simple. If you do not like it, get out. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button if you have ever experienced unfair treatment in your family, and subscribe to follow my journey from being taken advantage of to finally standing up for myself after 32 years. To understand how we reached this breaking point, I need to take you back to the beginning. I am Emanuel, 32 years old, working as a software developer for a tech company in Chicago. Growing up, I was always the serious, studious child. I got straight, as participated in science competitions, and spent my free time reading or building computers. Jason, 4 years younger, was the charismatic one. He played sports, had tons of friends, and charmed everyone he met with his easy smile and quick jokes. His grades were mediocre at best, but somehow that never seemed to matter to our parents. The pattern of favoritism started early. When I won first place in the state science fair at age 12, my parents nodded and said, "That is what we expect from you." When Jason scored his first goal in soccer that same year, they took the whole family out to celebrate and bought him a new gaming console. The inequality was not just about achievements. It extended to everything in our daily lives. By the time I was 13, I was responsible for washing dishes, taking out trash, mowing the lawn, and helping with household repairs. Jason rarely had chores, and when he did, he either convinced someone else to do them or simply ignored them until our parents gave up. Their excuse was always the same: Jason is different. He needs more freedom to express himself. Our room arrangements told the same story. We shared a bedroom until I was 15, when our parents finally decided we needed separate spaces. Jason got the larger bedroom with the bay window and new furniture. I got the converted storage room with my same old bed and desk. When I asked why, Mom said, "You are always studying anyway, so you do not need much space." The disparity continued with our educations. I worked part-time jobs throughout high school, saving for college while maintaining my perfect GPA. Jason barely passed his classes and spent most weekends partying. When college acceptance letters arrived, I received several scholarships, but still needed loans to cover the full cost of my computer science degree. My parents contributed nothing, explaining they needed to save for Jason's future. 2 years later, they paid for Jason's entire business degree, apartment, and car, despite his C average and frequent class skipping. Emanuel is smart and responsible. He will be fine, no matter what became the family mantra. Jason needs extra support to find his path. This message was repeated so often that I internalized it, believing it was my duty to succeed independently while supporting my brother's journey of self-discovery. This mindset shaped my personality in ways I am only now beginning to recognize. I became a perfectionist, constantly striving to prove my worth. I developed people-pleasing tendencies, suppressing my own needs to maintain family harmony. I lived with constant self-doubt, wondering if I would ever be good enough to earn the same love and support my brother received effortlessly. During family gatherings, the contrast was obvious to everyone except my parents. Relatives would comment on how different we were, how lucky my parents were to have one responsible child and one fun child. No one ever questioned why one child was forced to be responsible while the other was allowed to focus solely on fun. It was accepted as natural, as if we had been born into predefined roles rather than shaped by years of unequal expectations. By the time we reached adulthood, the pattern was so deeply established that neither Jason nor I questioned it anymore. He expected support and celebration regardless of his choices. I expected to work twice as hard for half the recognition. This dynamic might have continued indefinitely if not for the events of the past few years that pushed me to my breaking point. After college, I secured a well-paying job at a tech company and began building my career. Meanwhile, Jason bounced between various business ventures, none lasting longer than 6 months. Each failure was met not with consequences, but with increased support from our parents. They invested in his failed restaurant, his short-lived marketing agency, and his abandoned fitness app. Each time, they assured me these were learning experiences that would eventually lead to success. What they did not mention was that these investments were draining their retirement savings. I discovered this accidentally 3 years ago when helping them file taxes. They had remortgaged their house, cashed out life insurance policies, and accumulated significant credit card debt, all to fund Jason's entrepreneurial dreams. When I expressed concern, they dismissed it, saying they believed in supporting their children's dreams. The irony that my dreams had never received similar support went unacknowledged. Shortly after this discovery, our father had a heart attack. The medical bills were substantial, and their health insurance covered only a portion. Without hesitation, I stepped in, paying over $20,000 for treatments and rehabilitation. Jason contributed nothing, claiming he was between projects and had no savings. Our parents never asked him to help. As Dad recovered, I noticed our mother struggling with arthritis that made maintaining their house difficult. Again, I stepped up, hiring cleaners and arranging for meal deliveries. I spent weekends making repairs. They could no longer handle themselves. Jason rarely visited, always citing business meetings or social obligations. When he did stop by, he was treated like a special guest while I was expected to continue working on household projects. Last year, our father decided to revive a small family business. My grandfather had started a local printing shop that had been closed for years. He asked for my help modernizing and reopening it. Despite my full-time job, I agreed, spending evenings and weekends rebuilding the business website, setting up digital services, and managing accounts. My girlfriend Sarah pointed out that I was essentially working 2 jobs without compensation, but I brushed off her concerns. This was family after all. The business slowly became profitable, but instead of using the income to repay their debts, my parents funneled most of it to Jason, who had started yet another venture, an online clothing brand. They justified this by saying he needed seed money and promised he would repay them when successful. I doubted this, given his track record, but kept my concerns to myself. The final straw came 3 weeks ago. I discovered that my parents had taken out a second mortgage on their house to invest $50,000 in Jason's new business. This was after I had been contributing $1,500 monthly to help with their mortgage payments for the past 2 years. When I questioned this decision, my mother tearfully explained that Jason had such potential and they could not bear to see him fail again. That same week, Jason posted photos on social media from a luxury golf resort, tagging our parents with thanks for the early birthday gift. I later learned they had paid $4,000 for his weekend getaway with friends. Meanwhile, I had canceled my vacation plans with Sarah because I could not take time away from the family business during tax season. The weight of this inequality became unbearable. Years of suppressed frustration, resentment, and hurt began to surface. I found myself lying awake at night, questioning whether I had been complicit in my own mistreatment by accepting it for so long. Sarah urged me to establish boundaries, but the thought of disappointing my parents filled me with guilt and anxiety. Then came last Sunday, the day everything changed. I had been up until 3 in the morning, finalizing quarterly tax documents for the family business. By the time I arrived at my parents' house Sunday afternoon, I was exhausted, running on coffee and determination. Dad was sitting in his recliner watching golf when I walked in. Without looking up, He immediately asked why I had not completed the inventory reconciliation he had mentioned the day before. I was up all night with the tax filings, I explained, sinking into the couch. I will get to the inventory tomorrow after work. He frowned. The tax deadline is not for 2 weeks. The inventory should have been your priority. Before I could respond, the front door opened and Jason strolled in wearing new golf attire, his face tanned from a weekend outdoors. "Hey, everyone," he called cheerfully. "What an amazing weekend. Thanks again for the trip, Dad." The courses were incredible. Dad's expression immediately brightened. "There he is. Did you break 90, like you were hoping to?" 92, Jason replied, dropping onto the couch beside me. "But I made some great connections. A couple of investors were playing in the group ahead of us, and they are interested in meeting about my clothing line next week." "That is fantastic," Dad said, beaming with pride. "I told you, networking on the golf course is where the real business happens." I sat silently watching this exchange with growing disbelief. The contrast between my reception and Jason's could not have been more stark. The unfairness of it all, accumulating over decades, suddenly crystallized in my mind. For the first time, I found myself unable to suppress my feelings. "So let me understand this," I said, my voice surprisingly calm despite the storm inside me. "I have been working 60-hour weeks between my job and the family business. I have paid thousands toward your mortgage and medical bills. I canceled my vacation to help with tax season, and you are criticizing me for not completing inventory." Meanwhile, Jason gets a $4,000 golf trip and praise for making connections that will probably go nowhere, like all his other business ideas. The room fell silent. My mother, who had been in the kitchen, appeared in the doorway, her expression tense. Jason shifted uncomfortably beside me, but there was a hint of a smug smile at the corner of his mouth, as if he knew nothing would change. Dad straightened in his chair, his face hardening. "Emanuel, we have always supported both of you in different ways. Jason has a different path than you do. Different paths. Or different expectations." I challenged. "When have you ever supported my path? When have you invested in my future, the way you have invested in his? We raised you to be responsible." Mom interjected. "Jason needs more guidance. He is 28 years old," I countered. "How long does he need guidance while I need to be responsible for everyone?" Dad's patience visibly thinned. "This is how our family works, Emanuel. You have always been the dependable one. Jason has other qualities. So, I work while he enjoys," I summarized. "Is that it?" Dad looked me directly in the eyes, his expression unyielding. "Yes, you have work while your brother enjoys. It is that simple. And if you do not like it, you can get out." The room went completely still. In that moment, something fundamental shifted within me. All the pain, all the inequality, all the years of unequal love consolidated into perfect clarity. I had been carrying this family financially and emotionally, receiving nothing but demands in return. "Great," I said, standing up slowly. "Then I will leave, and you can pay your own bills. It is that simple." Jason's smirk vanished, replaced by uncertainty. My mother gasped. My father's expression flickered between anger and confusion, as if he could not believe I would actually stand up to him. "What are you talking about?" he demanded. "You cannot just walk away from your responsibilities." "My responsibilities," I repeated. "You mean the business I help run without compensation? The mortgage I help pay? The medical bills I covered? Those are not my responsibilities. They are yours. And apparently Jason's, since he is so full of potential." I turned to Jason. "Hope those golf connections work out, brother. Mom and Dad are counting on you now." With that, I walked to the door. My mother called after me, her voice trembling. "Emanuel, do not be dramatic. Your father did not mean it like that." I paused, hand on the doorknob. "Yes, he did. And for once, I am taking him at his word. I am getting out." As I drove away, My phone began buzzing with texts and calls. I ignored them all, feeling a strange mixture of terror and liberation. For the first time in my life, I had chosen myself over my family's expectations. The guilt was still there, a heavy presence in my chest, but alongside it was something new: self-respect. I drove straight to Sarah's apartment, where I explained everything that had happened. Instead of the disappointment I had feared, she held me close and whispered, "I am so proud of you." In that moment, I realized how twisted my understanding of love had become, how I had been conditioned to believe that love required endless sacrifice without reciprocation. That night, as messages continued to flood my phone, I made a decision that would change the course of my life. I would no longer be the family safety net. I would no longer enable the dysfunction that had defined us for so long. I would build boundaries that protected my well-being, even if it meant redefining what family meant to me. The weeks following my departure were challenging in ways I had not anticipated. I stayed temporarily with Sarah while looking for my own apartment, setting a boundary I had never before established. I would not return to my parents' house until they acknowledged the inequality and were willing to discuss meaningful changes. The financial implications became apparent almost immediately. Without my monthly contributions, my parents struggled to make their mortgage payment. The family business faltered as tax deadlines approached, with no one managing the accounts. Jason, suddenly thrust into the role of responsible son, found himself overwhelmed by expectations he had never been trained to meet. The communication from my family evolved in predictable stages. First came anger and accusation. Dad left voicemails calling me selfish and ungrateful. Mom sent tearful texts about how I was breaking her heart. Jason messaged that I was making everything about myself and abandoning the family when they needed me. When these tactics failed to bring me back into the fold, they switched to guilt. Stories about Dad's health declining due to stress, references to how much they had sacrificed for me growing up, reminders of family loyalty and obligation. Each message was designed to activate the programming that had kept me compliant for decades. Finally, as their financial situation grew more precarious, came desperation. Dad called to ask when I would get over this and resume helping with the business. Mom inquired about the status of my contribution for their mortgage. Jason, most surprisingly, reached out to ask if I would co-sign a loan for him, since our parents could no longer help him financially. I maintained my distance, but not out of spite. For the first time, I was prioritizing my own healing. I began seeing a therapist who specialized in family dynamics, discovering that what I had experienced had a name: family scapegoating. I learned that my role as the responsible, self-sacrificing child was not a natural personality trait, but a response to systemic family dysfunction. With Sarah's encouragement, I began rebuilding my life around my own needs and desires. I found an affordable apartment close to my workplace, reducing my commute and giving me more personal time. I established a savings account, something I had never prioritized while supporting my family. I reconnected with friends I had neglected due to family obligations, building a support network that valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. The most profound change, however, was internal. As weeks passed without carrying my family's financial and emotional burdens, I experienced a lightness I had never known. The persistent anxiety that had been my constant companion began to fade. The perfectionism that had driven me to exhaustion loosened its grip. I slept better, laughed more freely, and found joy in simple pleasures that had previously seemed indulgent. 3 months after my departure, my father called with a different tone. "We need to talk," he said, his voice lacking its usual authority. As a family, I agreed to meet them on neutral ground, a coffee shop downtown. Sarah offered to come for moral support, but I knew this was a conversation I needed to have alone. When I arrived, I found all 3 of them already seated at a corner table, looking uncomfortable and out of place. The conversation began awkwardly, with my father clearing his throat several times before speaking. "The business is struggling without you," he finally admitted. "We have fallen behind on paperwork, and customers are complaining about errors. And the mortgage payment is 2 months behind," my mother added quietly. "We may lose the house." I nodded, acknowledging their statements without offering immediate solutions. "What about Jason's new investors? The ones from the golf trip?" Jason looked down at his coffee. "That did not pan out," he mumbled. "They were just being polite." "I see," I said. "And what exactly are you hoping to get from this conversation?" My father shifted uncomfortably. "We need your help, Emanuel. We thought we could manage without you, but we cannot." "What about what you said before, that I work while Jason enjoys? That if I do not like it, I can get out?" His face flushed. I was angry. "I should not have said that." "But you meant it," I replied calmly. "And it was not just something you said in anger. It was the unspoken rule our entire family has operated under for as long as I can remember." My mother reached across the table, attempting to take my hand. I gently pulled away. "Emanuel, we have always loved both of you equally. We just showed it differently. Unequal treatment is not equal love," I said, "and I am not coming back to the same dynamic that I left." "What do you want from us?" my father asked, a hint of his old impatience surfacing. "Acknowledgement," I replied. "Acknowledgement that you treated us differently, that you expected more from me and gave more to Jason, that you took advantage of my willingness to help without offering the same support you gave him." The silence that followed was heavy, with 3 decades of unspoken truths. Finally, my father spoke, his voice rough with emotion. "You are right. We did treat you differently. We saw you were capable and responsible from an early age, and we leaned on that. We worried more about Jason because he struggled in ways you never did. But we took you for granted. We expected too much and gave too little in return. I am sorry, son." His acknowledgement, something I had never expected to hear, brought tears to my eyes. It did not erase the past, but it opened a door to a possible future where truth could exist between us. From that conversation, we began rebuilding our relationship on new terms. I agreed to help with the family business 2 evenings per week, but as a paid consultant, not a dutiful son working for free. I helped them restructure their finances, but made it clear that I would not be their financial safety net going forward. Most importantly, I established clear boundaries about what I would and would not accept in terms of treatment and expectations. The most surprising development came from Jason. Faced with actual consequences for the first time in his life, he began to change. He took a steady job at a marketing firm, something he had always considered beneath his entrepreneurial aspirations. He started contributing to our parents' mortgage payments. He even apologized to me, admitting that he had known the situation was unfair, but had been too comfortable to challenge it. 6 months after my departure, I found myself in a place I never thought possible. I had purchased my first home, a modest condo that was entirely mine. Sarah and I were engaged, planning a future based on mutual respect and support. My relationship with my parents was fundamentally changed, but not destroyed, evolving into something more balanced and honest. The family dynamic had not magically healed, nor had decades of inequality been erased. My father still occasionally slipped into old patterns of expectation. My mother still sometimes made excuses for Jason's behavior. But now, when these moments occurred, I had the strength to address them directly rather than silently accepting them. One Sunday, almost exactly a year after I had walked out, we gathered for dinner at my new home. As we sat around the table, I noticed something I had never seen before: my father asking Jason to help clear the dishes, while my mother asked about my recent work project with genuine interest. These were small changes, perhaps insignificant to an outsider, but to me they represented a fundamental shift in our family's gravity. Later that evening, as everyone was leaving, my father pulled me aside. "I never thought losing you would be what we needed to find a better way forward," he said quietly. I wish I had seen it sooner. Me too, I replied, embracing him briefly. But we are here now. The truth is that some family patterns are too deeply ingrained to ever fully disappear. The roles we played for so long have left permanent marks on all of us, but standing up for myself, refusing to accept unequal treatment, and demanding acknowledgement of my worth were not acts of abandonment as I had feared. They were necessary steps toward healing not just for me, but for our entire family. If you are watching this and recognizing similar patterns in your own family, know that you deserve equal love, equal support, and equal respect. Setting boundaries is not selfish. It is essential for your well-being and for honest relationships. Has family favoritism affected your life? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to hear more about navigating complex family dynamics. And if you know someone struggling with similar issues, share this with them so they know they are not alone. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember that sometimes walking away is the first step toward creating something better for everyone.